Welcome to Eat, Sleep, Wine, Repeat, a podcast for all you wine lovers who, if you're like me, just cannot get enough of the good stuff. I'm Yanina Dore, your host, brand ambassador, wine educator, and sommelier. So stick with me as we dive deeper into this ever-evolving, wonderful world of wine. And wherever you are listening to this, cheers to you. Hello, wine friends, and welcome back to part 2 with Helena Nicklin. Now, if you've missed last week, do go back. We're talking about Helena's TV series, The Three Drinkers, which is on Amazon Prime, and all about cognac. But today's episode, we are talking about her very own whiskey, matured in Bordeaux cask barrels. You're going to get some personal wine recommendations. Then we're discussing Riesling and its sweetness levels. Then we're flying ourselves over to Chianti. Both of us actually visited last year. And so we're going to give you a few ideas to perhaps create an itinerary. And of course, there'll be some wine recommendations from Chianti Classico itself. You will then be introduced to Chianti Classico's new UGA classifications, which stands for Additional Geographical Units. So this was new for me too. We'll be talking about women making an impact in the wine world and even a winery on the Isle of Wight. So there's loads packed into this one. So sit back and relax. Well, unless you are driving, of course, and enjoy. Now, I want to take us over to you making your own whiskey. So again, just like I said in the last episode, you never stop. You're always doing a million projects. How did it come about that you and Adi, right, together, the two of you created your own whiskey?
Right. Well, thank you for asking. We were filming The Three Drinkers in Ireland, and we always had the idea that for every series we make, because obviously we're going to make hundreds, I don't know.
I hope so.
But wouldn't it be nice to have a product that goes with it so you can drink it while you're watching? So that was the idea. So we always had that in mind. We launched a Scotch whiskey for the Scotch show. We just did a limited edition of 300 bottles for that. And then we were filming in Ireland, and we got really friendly with some fantastic people in County Donegal while I was abseiling down cliffs.
Love it.
And yes, they've got a distillery called Slieve where they make a more historic style of Irish whiskey. Now, you might not know, but I guess Irish whiskey is famous for being like particularly smooth and velvety, like more so than Scotch.
Okay.
And so we love that, but there's a slight peatiness to a lot of what Slieve do, like really, really slight. And that's more the historic style. And we really liked that. We wanted to get back to that. But because they showed us a whiskey that was aged in a Spanish wine cask, and we just loved it because it was bringing together the worlds of wine and whiskey. And we said, could you do that for us? And they were like, yeah. But obviously it takes a while to finish a whiskey in a wine cask. So to finish, what that means is, once it's matured and like become whiskey, you put it in a different barrel to impart different flavours that has held something else before. So we said, brilliant, okay. And we worked with the distillery to find out which casks we could potentially use. And they've got brilliant relationships with many wine producers around Europe. And we thought Bordeaux, because quite frankly, we were thinking that's where we might be going next, and it might be quite a good link.
Yeah, okay.
And also, we're really familiar with it. And they had Clos l'Église. They had the option of getting some from Clos l'Église.
Now that's special.
It really is. And it was one of the very first Bordeaux I ever tried when I was right at the beginning of my journey.
Oh, wow. So this is a special winery for you in general?
Yes, yeah, it really is. And I met Helen Garcin at my first wine job years ago. And it's where I fell in love with Merlot, really, like proper Merlot. And I can still taste that wine as I taste, like in my memory, as I taste it back, like nearly 20 years ago now. Oh my goodness. And I just thought that is going to be stunning with this whiskey.
And actually, sorry, everybody, Helena's mentioned Merlot. This is Pomerol. So Clos l'Église is in Pomerol. So on the right bank, just for anyone who wants to maybe investigate this very, very beautiful winery.
Clos l'Église, which means sort of the little area of the church. Clos, or walled vineyard. Doesn't sound as good in English, does it? No. No, so it's a stunning, very, very high-end winery, but it's not up its own bottom. Anyway, the style of Merlot from there is really fleshy and cedary and a little bit of tobacco. Even when it's young, it's quite full-bodied. It's not too tannic, and it's elegant, but it's full with it at the same time. And and I think that with the red silky style, or just the silky style of whiskey that Schlieve made, with that tiny, tiny bit of peat, because it's quite rich. And we thought it would work really well. James Doherty, who helped us with it, thought it would too. And yeah, he says, I'm allowed to quote him on this, but he says it's the most successful wine finished whiskey that they've done. And,
I love it.
Yeah, and we're so happy with it. It's quite different. And again, we're donating £1 from every bottle to a mental health charity that we both feel very strongly about.
Yeah, tell me about that, because I'd never heard of this. Was called the Black
My Black Dog.
My Black Dog. Yes.
Yeah, it's not as big as it should be, but it's growing very, very quickly. Yeah, and it's all about mental health, and it feels like it's got a focus on men, which is brilliant. It's for everyone, but it's very male friendly. And it's got some incredible ambassadors. So Eddie Temple Morris, who's a Virgin Radio DJ, who's actually our third drinker in this cognac series. He's taught us a lot about it. We've auctioned ourselves as the three drinkers for a recent auction that My Black Dog had at a big dinner. Yeah, so it means a lot to us, because both Eddie and I have struggled over the last few years with mental health issues, as I'm sure everyone has, actually. Yeah. And it's really nice to actually be in a position to give something back. Even if it's not massive, we're doing something that we can,
No, absolutely. And I had a little look on this website, and basically there's effectively, it's like the chat bots, but there's actually a person behind it, and you can start, and this is completely free, and you can start talking to them, and they're going to come back to you and chat further, I guess, and hopefully give you some support and advice. And it's just there, like, just literally go to this website. And because of course I think we should everybody, regardless of how fantastic you feel, I think everyone should go to therapy, because we all have something to talk about, but it's when it costs money that the majority of us do not go, because we can't afford it. So it's amazing that there's this option where people can just maybe share their feelings and have some support through that website. I think that's beautiful. So if people like that, they can go to My Black Dog. They can obviously purchase your whiskey, which is also going to help that. And where can they get the whiskey from?
Well, I mean, Schlieve is quite difficult to remember, but if you go to the Three Drinkers website, it's quite easy to find from there. And you can buy it in euros or in pounds.
Can you get it in Amazon?
Just to make it easy. Yes, you actually, I haven't seen if it's out yet, but yes, it's coming to Amazon.
In theory,
in theory, yes. Oh my gosh, I need to check that.
Do you know the price?
Yes, it's not the cheapest, because it's cast strength,
premium product,
and limited edition. It's $49.95, so it's
in keeping.
It's in keeping.
And you say in cask strength, I just want to ask about, we've talked about impacting flavours from the barrel. That's the whole point, taking some of this Bordeaux fruitiness and spices and obviously the oak. But how old was the oak? Was it like a fifth use barrel? Is it just a really old barrel that just had wine in for many, many years?
Not many years. It was relatively recently filled, as far as I'm aware, because you still want to... You want it to have some impact. Had it been too old, then it wouldn't have done very much. Yeah. So within the last couple of years, the barrel was, but it had to stay in that barrel for about at least 6 months. Okay. To impart those flavours. And it's still a very young whiskey, but it's showing really beautifully now. Cask strength means that we haven't diluted it in the bottle, which is another, that cask strength whiskey tends to be more expensive. Quite often when you buy spirits, they are all diluted to a uniform level of maybe around 40%, depending on what the spirit is. So this is 46. So it's quite punchy. I drink it, with a little drop of water, it changes the structure a bit and just opens up the nose and stops the nose burn. Okay,
interesting. Yeah. Now, when you picked the barrel, was it more about the contacts that they had and obviously your relationship in your mind of Clos, or have you been to that winery? Have you been to Pomerol?
I have been to Pomerol. I haven't been to Clos actually. For me, we could have gone Languedoc. We could have done a few. There were lots of producers that I knew who they were. But I think having Bordeaux and Pomerol felt like a bit of a step up. And given that I know the wine very well as well, I kind of knew more what I was getting there. And for me personally, the history with it, I just jumped at it, and sort of begged Adi to agree with me, but very happily he did, because he's a big fan too.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, and also I want to ask as well, did you learn anything at all from working with barrels? I've never been to a cooperage ever. I want to see the fire. I want to see them burning the wood, and I've never done that. I just wonder, you must have gone to one.
Yes, we went in Cognac and we went in Scotland. Did we go in Ireland? Maybe we didn't go in Ireland because we'd just done it in Scotland. Oh, it's great. It's so visceral. Yes. We helped with the fire machine by pressing buttons. And, but it smells amazing when you see all the different, how barrels are put together. It's properly an art.
Yes.
It's incredible seeing that these people are trained for ages. And the different toasting levels. Yeah, the smells, that lovely vanillin and the toastiness and the fire and yes, it's very you've got to watch your step because it's very physical. There's a lot of fire, lots of hammering going on, very loud. But
I can imagine. Well, because of course they're bending the wood, they're sticking it in with this like the metal ring, aren't they? And then when it's half open, then they put it over the fire, and then depending on how long it's in the fire, I guess that's when you're going to consider it light toasted, medium.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And each producer has their own preferred cooperage as well. Mm-hmm. So yes.
Well, yes, of course. And we're not just talking about the cooperage, and you want to work with somebody that is reputable, but then what forest are you using? And I mean, we did mention in the podcast before with the cognac podcast that many producers, it depends on what grain they're using, what barrel they're using, and obviously there's the traditional, they like Tronchet and Limousin, I think, but again, it depends on what they want to use, and it's going to give a different flavour to the product you're making. So it's fascinating. Wine, cognac, the whole thing.
It is, because that was something I was absolutely less aware of actually until we went to cognac, but thankfully we had Tanguy from Courvoisier. Yeah, he explained that beautifully, because we went to see the wood before it was even put into, before we went to the cooperage, basically. So we could see the difference between the fine grains and the wider grains. You could physically see this. We saw the whole process from start to finish, basically, from whole trees being brought in sustainably, by the way. Yes.
I found out from my winemaker that actually so when we talk about French oak compared to, say, American oak, and French oak tends to have finer grains, but actually the finest of grains will be in the north of France, just again a bit like with grapes, because it's cooler climate.
Yes,
the trees
that's right.
grow in that. I find that fascinating. So as an example, if you choose a forest in the southern part of France, it actually can be a little bit more similar to American oak because the grains will be thicker. So it's just so fascinating how the trees can be so completely different and will impart different flavours.
But it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? If it's cooler, they don't.
Of course.
Like a cool climate wine versus a warm climate wine. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Fascinating. Anyway, everybody, let me know if this is interesting. I think I'm going to have to do a forest, and a cooperage episode, because I think actually we could geek out on that, can't we?
Yeah.
Okay, now, really important question. Helena, if you had to choose wine or whiskey, you can only choose one.
Oh, well, it's no question, I'm afraid. Sorry, whiskey, I do love you, but wine. Wine is my superpower.
Isn't it just? Oh. So then we say about wine. I'm glad you said that. Thank you. You have a weekly guest live on Talk TV. So people, you may have seen Helena there, and you're regularly tasting, you're talking about new wines. So has there been any, I don't know, standout wines for you lately that you want, that you need to recommend, that your body is screaming to release and tell people about?
Yeah, they have. I mean, gosh, it all fades into one, really, because it's every week it's like, oh my gosh, it's Thursday again. What am I going to show?
Oh God, yes.
And there've been quite a lot of spirits recently as well. I even made him a Parmesan espresso martini last week.
That's the one. Oh,
hilarious.
Yeah.
Not that, shall we say? Not that. Let's see what's gone down really well wine-wise. Oh, I really enjoyed doing Welsh recently.
Welsh wine.
Welsh wine, yes. Gwynder vineyard. That was That was really delicious, actually. We did a Six Nations where we got some Uruguayan Tanat and Albarino. And it was,
love Uruguay wine. And obviously I
Yes.
feel like I'm cheating on my lovely Chileans, because anyone who knows me knows I have a special affiliation with Chilean wine. But Uruguay, it's that beautiful balance between European style and then South American style. It has some elegance, it's got structure, but it's still got fruit. And they're all typically in Uruguay, they're much more smaller wineries. All kind of typically family run, and you've got some absolutely brilliant producers in Uruguay. I'm a massive fan.
Yes, so am I. That's very, very nicely put. And try giving that to someone in a blind tasting, see if they can guess where it's from as well. It's really fun. If you're a geek like we are.
And Tanit as well from Uruguay. It has all this robustness and intensity, but there's something that they've managed to find a way to soften the tannins, and it's very juicy. There's a beautiful, beautiful winery called Viña Progreso.
I don't know them actually. I know a few.
It's the Pisano family. So I've always loved their wines. The Pisano family, and then one of the family members, the son, I hate it. I always get it wrong. Anyway, has started his own winery, Viña Progreso.
I'll need to look those up actually.
Yes, they are brilliant. I've always liked Buza. They've got some brilliant wines. And I tell you what, I started my Uruguayan journey with Garzon.
Oh yes, of course. I think everyone has. Yes,
it's almost the rule. They're the gatekeeper to Uruguayan
they
wine.
are. But it's great. I think what they've done is they've really opened the door to wine from Uruguay. In fact, I think the best wine on my local pub's wine list was a Garzon Uruguay. There was a bit of Merlot in it, but it was mostly Tanat. And it was amazing. Tanat from Uruguay is to Madaran what Malbec in Argentina is to Cahors.
Yeah, precisely. And it's so funny, isn't it? Because actually I've just released an episode on the southwest of France, and we're talking about Malbec or Côte, in Cahors and Tanat and Madaran, and saying, these are more rustic and they're earthier and they can come out, they're leaner and potentially spicier. And then you go to the Malbec in Argentina or the Tanat in Uruguay, and there's a roundness and a slightly more lusciousness. The tannins more mouth coating and softer. It's just very, very interesting.
Lusciousness, that's a great description. South America is doing some really interesting things with the European grapes, beating them at their own game, some might say.
Yeah, kind of, unfortunately. I mean, I say that and the pricing is typically is better than what you're going to get in Europe. There's not obviously you can't say that 100%, but if in doubt,
of course not. But what it does, it starts people off trying things like Tanat and Malbec, and then they will come back to their home regions and really appreciate them a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so everyone, you've got to go Wales. So that's really random. Love that. And actually, I like Anchor Hill. I think they've got some really cool wine, and they're more they're quite.
Yes, I showed one from Anchor Hill. Yeah. We had a Pinot Noir sparkling traditional method. It was stunning.
What? Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay, so everyone Welsh wine accounts for about 1% of all the production of the UK, but there is wine there. Then you've got Uruguay. Anywhere else? Any other specific wine that was just beautiful this week or last week?
We did Rieslings.
Riesling rocks.
Day.
Riesling rocks.
Yeah, Riesling does rock. Yeah, it does. But a little tasting tour. I love taking people through maybe a Mosel from Germany and then an Alsatian and then an Eden Valley Australian version that's so searing lime.
Well, so that is something I would say when somebody's like, I don't want to try Riesling because it's sweet. And I'm like, no, the majority is not sweet. That's not the case. If in doubt, something like Eden Valley or even Clare Valley, they're pretty much all dry, right? Unless it would actually say sweet on the bottle, some producer wants to try something. That's a really easy place to go where you're going to get a dry wine.
Bone dry.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Wow.
Do you have any other advice on somebody who's scared of Riesling? Because we want them into the Riesling camp.
Yeah. And I think Alsace.
They're pretty dry. Yeah. Alsace is always good.
They're dry, but they're full-bodied, aren't they? They're a bit more fruity rather than sweet, I think, is... Just every time I have one from Alsace, I'm like, why am I not drinking this every day? Yeah, I think people are scared by the flute-shaped bottles as well, which is a real, because there still is a hang-up about that being a cheap wine that is badly made. and is sweet. But maybe with a new generation of wine drinkers, that will be less so. We've just got to keep pegging away at that message, really, haven't we? I think.
Precisely. And I mean, obviously, Germany is going to be the most confusing place in terms of sweetness. I mean, my advice has always been, if you look at the back of the bottle and the alcohol is pretty low, if you're going to get a 7% Riesling, it's going to have quite a bit of sweetness. If you can find a Riesling, of course, there's always exceptions to every rule, but if you're going to find a Riesling that's 11.5 or even 12%, you're probably likely that wine is dry or just off dry. So that, I think, is typically a good way to go.
That's very good advice. Yeah, that is, because even if you learn that trocken means dry, actually a lot of the time they're definitely off dry. It's like, oh, that's so unhelpful.
To be honest, I did a podcast with Forge Cellars, who make insane Rieslings in the Finger Lakes, and he got onto a whole conversation with me because he's like, we do bone dry Rieslings, and he's like, apparently everyone in the Finger Lakes is like, oh, it's dry, and it's like, but it's still got like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 grams, and he's like, this is not dry, and there's a whole thing that's so yes. Oh, the wonderful world of wine. But the people are going around saying, but it appears to be dry because the acidity's so high, so perception's not. And of course, he's like, look, it's either dry or it's not dry, sort of thing. But that was quite interesting. So he said quite a few interesting things to me when we weren't recording.
I'm so glad I'm not in charge of marketing Riesling, because, oh my God. It's because, I mean, it depends who's asking the question, right? Like, yes, there's a lot of sugar in there, but it's balanced by this. So, oh my God. Yeah.
But anyway, don't be scared of Riesling, even with sugar. I mean, literally, some sweetness is going to go so well with spices. It's so good with Asian food, and also just drinking it by itself with a bit of sugar in there.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like it's sugar added.
No, sorry, residual sugar.
When people hear, no, it's just when some people hear the word, there's sugar in wine. Who's putting sugar in wine? And I know you can, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, we won't go into those details, but yes, but it's such a good, it tempers spice so well, doesn't it? A bit of sweetness.
It does.
Yeah.
Embrace the Riesling, embrace the residual sugar.
Yes.
So I said to you, tell me one of the special regions you visited recently, and what did you choose?
Oh, Chianti Classico.
I'm so glad you said that, because I visited them last year as well, and it is actually one of my favourite regions. So why? I mean, it's obvious.
I mean, I get it could be obvious, but
okay.
It changed my mind. I thought I knew Chianti.
Okay.
Basically, I thought I knew Chianti, and I really didn't.
Okay.
Sangiovese is one of my favourite grapes. You know, I got engaged in Montalcino.
Did you?
You know, I've named my children after Italian wines. I'm a big fan of Tuscan reds, especially with Sangiovese. But and I know that they have a lot of the rules have changed recently. So we now have UGAs. They've been mapped. The region of Chianti Classico has been mapped with these very specific UGAs by this genius man.
UGA. What does UGA stand for?
It's the Italian version of additional geographical units. Very sexy. But it's like an appellation, really, isn't it? Like a wine producing area. It's what they've done is they've mapped the Chianti Classico area by terroir and location.
Yes.
Well, location is part of terroir because of the subtle differences that the elevation there and the soil bring to the wines there. And there's a much stronger focus now than there ever was on like all the sub-regions of Chianti Classico. And you know what I hadn't really appreciated is that Chianti is not Chianti Classico.
No. Can you explain that for everybody listening in case they aren't aware of what that means?
Yeah. Okay, so Chianti and Chianti Classico tend to be put in the same basket all the time. I think people kind of understand that Chianti Classico might be slightly better. But really, what my understanding is that years ago, at the very, very, very beginning, the Chianti region encompassed a lot of different types of terroirs and a lot of different types of like production, and the best area was sort of roped off, as it were, to be Chianti Classico. But they weren't allowed to change the rules. So actually, Chianti can be so many different things, and you know the rules and regulations around it are different to Chianti Classico
Yeah.
from Chianti Classico.
Yeah.
They're much more rigid in Chianti Classico. Because they want to keep the quality super high. In fact, I think that, you know, they've changed the yields, they've changed the way that you can make things, and like it has the percentages of Sangiovese that could be in there. It's a different product from Chianti. And that is the thing. Chianti is a kind of rustic, can be anything kind of wine. Chianti Classico is the real deal. And oh my God, the wines I tasted there, as I'm sure you found as well. Oh, it's my new favourite wine style. Not that I'm allowed to have one, but it does change all the time. But, you know, I thought I was a Brunello girl.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I always will be a Brunello girl, but no. The expression of Sangiovese from Chianti Classico is just the most elegant. Oh,
Well, now, interesting
wow.
you're saying that. So for everybody who wants to know what is Chianti Classico, it has to be at least 80% Sangiovese, and then you could use some of the indigenous varieties like Colorino, Canaiolo, but then you can also use the international varieties like Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot and Syrah. One thing I've found is that there are more producers, there's still a lot of everything, but there are more producers going to that 100% Sangiovese. And that is where I find it really interesting, because Sangiovese itself, it doesn't give you a depth of colour. It has this lovely tartiness, like those sour red cherries and these kind of herbal violet notes. And when you're not throwing in any Cabernet Sauvignon or the Colorino, surprise, surprise, everyone, the name adds colour. If you're not adding in any of those, or you're being very, very careful with just a small percentage, I think then that Sangiovese kind of, the grape itself can really shine. And I think it's a really, there's a lovely earthy style. It dances for me. It's not chunky. Sangiovese has a brightness to it. So it's a really interesting variety.
There's a really annoying term in wine, and I haven't found a better one for it yet. Drinkability.
Gluggability?
But you wouldn't want to glug.
No.
But it's goes down so easily. It's so complex, but it's effortless. Yeah, silky and saline, and it's easy, isn't it?
But it's still a real great variety, you know, in terms of the tannins. Actually, you know, there's some pretty decent tannins, medium plus tannins there, you know, but it's high acidity. So I think that's what helps with its freshness and its brightness, isn't it?
Yes.
And I also find that on its own, and this is where interesting, you were talking about Brunello, which for everyone is also Sangiovese, but it's from further down south. But that kind of the clones that are down, the Brunello down there, it tends to be bigger, bolder,
it's
deeper,
beefy, isn't it?
beef. There you go. That's the word, beefier. Whereas this has it's the brightness, the freshness, and the body tends to be, again, obviously when we start getting to the Gran Selezione category and oak aging, it does change a bit more. But I just think when you find a really nice, just a Chianti Classico, or maybe just a Chianti Classico Reserva, medium bodied, really fresh, and I feel like all the fruits really showcase beautifully, and you get more of the flowers coming through, and maybe a bit of balsamic and forest floor. So I don't know if it feels like when you're drinking proper Sangiovese from the Chianti Classico, it feels like you are in Chianti. You know, and you're going through those forests, right? And the salami hanging down from, you know, the Enoteca you were explaining in the podcast before. And maybe, you know, they always have just meat hanging down by the window. And I don't know.
You're so right. That's such a beautiful way to describe it, I think. Yes, it is. It's Tuscany in a bottle, isn't it? It's the best of Tuscany on a crisp spring day or autumnal day. Yeah, in a bottle.
Where did you go? Was there some place? Actually, yeah, if you could recommend somebody to go and check out somewhere in Chianti.
Yes, totally. I think we went to every single one of the new 11 UGAs.
Wow, okay.
We had the tour with Alessandro Masnighetti. That's it. He's the cartographer that he studied the whole area, and he put these together, and he's drawn the maps for the whole area. So we were very lucky. We got to taste in the vineyards
very interesting
the different terroirs from places. So let me see. I mean, the ones that blew me, well, my Fontodi, I just absolutely adored. That was in Panzano, the UGA of Panzano. What other ones did I love? We started in San Casciano, and that's where I sort of had the light bulb moment of it. That where the the real elegance and that floral character and just that refreshingness. That was Luiano.
Okay.
I think you'd pronounce that.
And where's that region you just said? Where did you say you started?
San Casciano. I think that was up in the northwest. I think it's so that we kind of started there, and then we went all the way down and round. We didn't quite do all the 11. That would have taken far too long. But yes, we did a lot of them, especially down the west coast and in the middle. But if you get the chance to do a geographical tour of that area, it's fascinating because you can literally stand in certain places and you can see why the Sangiovese tastes different there and there and there, because you could see the differences in the elevation and what is vegetation, everything that's around there. Wow. Yeah. We were very lucky.
And actually, I'm Googling this right now. I didn't know anything about these UGAs, so this is brand new for me. But I'm looking...
It's really new.
It looks so interesting. Yeah, I'm reading an article. Who's it? Miningers International, there's an article written 2022, last June.
Yes. Well, I think we were the first trip to go out.
Wow,
actually.
okay.
And I know this was in December. So to actually have that tour and see it, it was phenomenal.
And they're now stricter, apparently, with the Gran Seleziones. So Gran Selezione, for anybody who just wants to know, whereas a Classico has to be aged for 12 months before release, Reserva is 24 months, and then a Gran Selezione needs to be 30 months, but it has to come from the estate, and it has to come from best vineyards. But here they're saying that the Gran Selezione now, I think there's tighter rules, so more territorial identity is what I'm reading, which is interesting.
And I think it has to be 100% Sangiovese as well, the Gran Selezione. Yeah, so those are always the three. Actually, every winery we went to, we were tasting the Chianti Classico, then the Reserva, then the Gran Selezione. So tasting through that range, you see the difference in style, and it becomes clear. It's a very good way to
it's
to
fascinating. To be honest, wow, I need to get on that. I mean, if anybody's never been to Chianti or Tuscany in general, it's just rolling hills, and it's
so beautiful.
It's village to castle and castle to village, and go through green forests and walled villages. And I'll tell you where I went last time for the first time, which was San Himignano, which is, for anybody, this is where their white wine comes from. So the only DOCG white wine of Tuscany, and it's Vernaccia. So for the Vernaccia di San Himignano. But yeah.
Coming at ya.
There you go. That's something to put on your wine t-shirts, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
There you go. Wine pan. But I have to say, honestly, going to San Himignano, it's a hilltop town, no surprise. But it's a walled city, and it's just so medieval. And because you're on the top, the vistas, everything you can see from around, and you're looking down. Chianti can be produced there, but obviously the Vernaccia di San Himignano, it's that specific region. But oh my God, walking through those little streets and all the tables. I mean, it's like with any of those regions, there were their little tables outside of all the little bodegas and restaurants and stuff. San Himignano is, for me, an absolute must for anybody who goes to Chianti now. That's a big tick. You must put that on your list.
Yeah.
Did you spend any time
it's
there?
It's like a film set.
Yeah.
No, not there.
You need to. You need to. You got to go back now.
I know. Oh yeah, I'm all over that. I didn't, but I just remember as we were driving around, I was so tired and I wanted to sleep, but I just couldn't tear my eyes away from the scenery. It's like a joke. It's like something like. Especially with the lighting at the time. It's like, this isn't a real place.
Yes.
This is a film set. Come on, it's just beautiful. And I think if you're going to stay anywhere, we stayed in Radda in Chianti, which is a good kind of base point to go and explore the region. And they've got some really lovely local restaurants there as well, where you could just, dive into the wine lists, and they're not, it's not crazy spenny. But, the food is insane.
Isn't it? I mean, this is the thing. And not even that expensive. So, because the Radda, you've just said, that's kind of like in the centre south. But just to the west of that is Castellina. And that, for me, I spent a lot of time on my last trip in Castellina. And again, it's not far from San Gimignano. So, I mean, to be honest, they're not far away from each other, Castellina and Radda. So you could they're iconic places, aren't they? I think there's also Gaiole, and then you haven't mentioned Greve in the northern part. I mean, they're the key. Actually,
oh God, no, I know. There's so many.
They are the main centres. If you wanted to go and visit so many vineyards, I think that would be it, wouldn't it? It's you mentioned Panzano, that's just south of Greve, and then the other three are kind of much closer to each other in the south. But I don't even know how you can describe.
You've reminded me that what I'm supposed to do and I haven't done yet, and it's in April now. I need to write it up properly, but I wanted to write it up for Luxury Lifestyle magazine where I could do like a travel piece. So if you want to go and discover Chianti Classico, start here, stay here, eat here, and here are 3 or 4 vineyards to go and wineries to go and visit to get a real flavour of the UGAs.
Honestly,
I need to get on that.
There you go. You're going to have to. I'm interested. So I wrote down, because don't worry, everyone, I can't remember this, but I stayed when I went in the Relais della Rovere. I'm reading this now. This is in the Colle Val d'Elsa.
Relais della Rovere.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, yeah, you're here to correct me. I never studied Italian. Relais della Rovere. There we go.
Rovere.
It was built by Benedictine monks in the 1100s. I mean, it's insane. It was owned by one of the popes in the 1400s, and it's this, it's all the cobbled stony walls, and there's a pool. Of course, so many of these places in the whole of Chianti, they all have pools, and you can look out on vineyards, and there's always some cypress tree and maybe an olive grove to look out on, or a vineyard, and you're at peace. That's the point, isn't it? The accommodations. You have to find an old building, an old house with a pool overlooking one of the many views, which is not very complicated.
It needs to be on a hill.
It has to be on a hill, absolutely. Yeah. Well, everything's on a hill, so...
Pretty much.
Everything is on a hill. Yeah. Oh, my God. Okay, so let us know when that's out. And maybe when this comes out, it doesn't exist, this travel guide by Helena, but if it does at some point, I will add it to the show notes. So maybe when you're listening to this in months and months into the future, I will add it if it exists. There we go.
Yes, sorry, Victoria Morale. I'll get there.
Oh, dear me. So I think you mentioned a few wines, Chianti producers, that you fell in love with, but is there any more that somebody should try? You said Fontodi already.
Yeah, so Castello La Leccia. That's in Castellina in Chianti. So, yeah, we did go there as well. I mean, there's always Villa Antinori, of course. Big name, but it's a great place to start. And it's quite easy to find. That one's in Majestic.
Well, I've talked about Antinori before because they have places you can stay. They have Michelin-star restaurants, if I recall correctly, but they have restaurants everywhere, vineyards everywhere. Obviously, they have the Tignanello vineyard, which is insane. And you... could actually do like an Antinori trip almost, visiting lots of different places and staying in an Antinori kind of hotel, or it's not even a hotel, like a farm stay, so, and they are one of the oldest family wineries in the world.
Yes, I mean they're like responsible for the huge names as well, aren't they? In terms of I remember my absolute favourite Chianti Classico, Isola e Helena.
Oh, Isola e Helena,
Ceparello. Oh my God,
they are. I mean, I don't know if cult producers exist in Chianti specifically, but if you want to say cult, I would put them up there.
Yes, there is something other with that wine.
Yeah.
It is absolutely stunning. And so another amazing producer to look out for, Giovanni Mazzei from Marchesi Mazzei. You can find those a lot in Peachtree Nurseries. They've got a special relationship there. In fact, I think they own it. They might have owned it. I'm not entirely sure. All I know is that I've had a couple of fantastic Mazzei dinners at Peachtree Nurseries. But again, it's a modern style of Tuscan wine and Chianti Classico, and it just manages to bring so much flavour, but without too much body, too much of anything. It's just perfectly judged. The balance is insane and so refreshing.
I need to try that then. I need to try that.
Yeah.
So when you were talked about the UGAs, which is bringing something brand new for us all to start looking into.
Yes.
Did you hear them talk about the new Chianti subzone, the Terre di Vinci? Terre de Vinci. Did I say it right? I don't know.
Terre de Vinci.
Yeah, so this is going to be...
I mean, you have saying it right.
Yeah. So this is in the north of Chianti. I think it's just south of Florence. and it's something that's going through. That's all I know.
No. It's obviously just didn't want to confuse matters.
They were like, no. So that's another one. And
Terra di Vinci.
Yeah, and that is something that I haven't found anything other than one article on the internet about Terra di Vinci. So everybody, this is obviously something, but it just adds on to the fact that Chianti is really changing quite clearly. It's evolving. They're getting even more, and this is going back even just a few decades. There wasn't really much research on the Sangiovese clones, and the clones of Sangiovese now to work out what's more floral. I mean, that's another podcast in itself, the clones on Sangiovese, isn't it?
Oh, I'll tell you what, when I, writing my Venology book, trying to find one for Sangiovese, well, you've got Morellino, and then you've got Chianti, and then you've got Chianti Classico, and then you've got Brunello. It's like, oh my God, you can't put it in a box. It's annoying if you can't put it in a box, but you can't put wine in a box.
No,
but you can literally.
You can't. No, I'm going to take us away from Chianti just because, I mean, we could talk about that all day. I want to actually just because I also want to, give you a little bit of a shout out, which I want everyone to know. You were named the top 100 most influential people in drinks in 2022, just last year. And also, and I love this one personally, the top 10 women to watch in the wine industry in 2019. I love that. So I wanted to make sure everybody knows about it, but I just wanted to, how does that make you feel? So,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was so excited by that. Yeah, especially the top 100 sort of, it feels a bit bigger for some reason. No, it was great to be in there. I know that they're going through the process at the moment. I hope I'm still in it, but I'm not sure I will be. They probably know because I've been really quiet because I've been making more telly. Maybe people don't know that yet because we haven't announced it at this moment while I'm talking to you.
No, but the fact that you even mentioned last year, I mean, I just think it's really, really special. And I mean, what would you, considering you were saying back in the podcast before that you were basically starting up your wine journey at a time when you would go to a wine tasting and you were the only woman there, things have really changed.
They really have.
Which is fantastic. But at the same time, there are many times when women still feel in the wine industry that they haven't got a certain advantage, or maybe it might feel intimidated. I mean, what would you say for women in the wine industry, how to make an impact? Because you have made an impact. You haven't let anything stop you.
No, well, thank you. I nearly did a couple of times, as I've mentioned before, but no, I haven't. I've moved forward. And do you know what's been such a help?
What's that?
Was I was asked to write something in the Daily Mail that I talked about earlier. I don't think you've seen it, but it was all about the beginning of my journey into wine and how tricky it was just being female. And I'm a white middle class female. Can you? The worst. But just even that, there weren't very many of us around. Yeah. But what I loved was after that, I didn't know whether I was going to be welcomed with open arms into tastings again or be made to feel like a pariah. And I walked into a tasting and just a group of women just sort of surrounded me. And honestly, I've never felt so supported in the wine trade in my life. And then they invited me onto the Wine Gurus group, which is brilliant. That's it's just women supporting women. And what I've loved seeing there is what I wish I'd had at the beginning, but I'm so glad it exists now, which is anyone going to this tasting? Does anyone want to do this? And it's so you've got someone who's got your back. It sounds awful. You don't necessarily need that, but it just, I think it really does help.
Women supporting women. And actually, that also goes for everybody. Finding support in whatever you're doing, whoever you are, make sure that you have somebody around you that can be your cheerleader, you can be theirs. That's actually, that's lovely.
Absolutely. It's so good. And I hadn't realised that I'd made an impact because I wasn't even sure if any of the younger people coming in would know who I was. But
You're not that old.
Can continue.
Can we? My God.
No, thank you.
You might feel it, but
I do
because you have a million projects, but you're not that old.
It's also just it feels it because I started such a long time ago. Literally, it's 21 years this year. Wow.
Yeah, but people watching this are going to be like, "Wow, she doesn't sound like a 60-year-old or a 70-year-old." Like, yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm not. I'm 45. I'm going to embrace my age with it. It's fine. But what I can do now, and again, I spoke before about actually being grateful for a couple of those really tough times, as I'm now fearless. And I think that's also being in your 40s. I will say it. And when people tell me stories of people who are behaving badly in the wine trade, I can now talk about that, and I can fight some battles for other people, and I have done. The the conversations I've had on the way out of tastings with certain well-known men in the wine industry. Old me would never have done that, but I feel like I've got a duty now.
Yes.
Because I've got the grey hair in the industry, I can sit amongst the older generation and the younger generation. I'm kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And so, and that works, I think. And I do feel that I should be an ambassador for younger women coming up and supporting them.
I love that. Be authentic, be fearless, find your community. There is a community.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah. It's nice because there is a community now, and I know that they've got me if I need them, which is great.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely. Now, you told me, and I just want everyone to know about all your millions of projects, because there's always something going on here. Are you releasing a wine book for beginners? Is that something you're doing? Or did I make that up?
No, you didn't. I self-published a book back in 2011 called Wine Buds of Analogy, and it was all about making wine visual. So I worked with an artist to do Pinot Noir as a ballerina, and I got really anal about the Pantones. It's a certain type of cherry red, and I'd give the whole palette, where Cabernet's more purpley black, and then you go, oh, don't even start me on Syrah. Yeah. I'm redoing it now. I have a book agent, and we're working on, because it needs modernising.
Okay.
I will own the fact that I started writing that in 2009, and some of the analogies aren't really fit for 2023.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't. Yes, my Nebbiolo one particularly. So I'm updating it, but also the wine world's changed.
Yeah.
So it's going to be it's a highly visual, irreverent.
Oh, I'm excited.
Just dip in and out.
No.
Wine beginners books. Yeah.
I'm all for visual wine books. I love that. And then just to finish off, because you did mention that you've moving to the Isle of Wight, you're going to be an ambassador for a winery in the Isle of Wight, right?
I am. Yes, unofficially, I absolutely am. They don't have a choice.
You've just made it. You're like, I live here. I'm going to talk about your wine the way I want to.
Well, yeah. Essentially.
And you will give me free wine.
I haven't requested that, but I do want to taste it.
Oh God, what if it's bad?
What's interesting about the Isle of Wight?
What if it?
Well, yeah, I know that could be awkward. Totally awkward. I don't know yet. I'm going to find out. I'm going there tonight. Well, I'm going to the island tonight.
Yeah.
So, but what's fascinating about the Isle of Wight is it's a little bit sunnier than the mainland, and there are so many west-facing chalky slopes.
Interesting.
And there were only 2 vineyards there, and one's closed down, and the other, it's lovely, but it's still using like mostly Germanic varietals, and it's all right, but it's not on a level of some of the producers that we know and love, like Balfour, for example.
Thank you.
And so I had an idea that I wanted to get together some people who actually had money and an interest in wine, and wondered if we could do something together. I even contacted Stephen Skelton to say, can we get you over and can we find somewhere? While doing that research, I found that actually there's a brand new winery called Pinkmead Estate. And it's right on the river, and it turns out it's 10 minutes drive from my new house. And
this is amazing.
Yeah, and so I started following them on Instagram, and then they followed me back, and I'm like, I'm about to move to your area, and like, oh my God, come down. I'm like, yeah, you can't stop me. But
that is brilliant. Okay.
And they're like, consider this your vineyard. So now I feel like I don't have to do it myself, but I can now be an ambassador for them.
Oh no, that's okay. That makes absolute sense. When do you think they'd be releasing their first vintage?
Well, they did apparently release one, but it was made. Was it I think the Grange people in Hampshire kindly made it for them because they were still building their winery. And I think that this is going to be their first vintage, I believe, when they harvest it.
That's very exciting.
It is so exciting.
I'm going to come and visit you.
Yes, please.
And I shall come and taste their wine when it's ready.
Oh, do. Yeah. It's got a little house by the sea now. And yeah.
They're beautiful. Something for the soul. And everybody, there you go. For English wine, it continues extending. So let's see what happens with the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, watch this space. I'll be shouting about it a lot.
Helena, you're amazing. Now I'm feeling nice and energised for the day. So I hope everyone else is having listened to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really lovely talking to you.
Oh, good old Natter, huh? Right, we must do this again sometime. Right, I shall now leave you in peace. Bye.
Bye.
I hope this episode has just been a super uplifting one. Helena's energy just shines through, and I genuinely appreciated that she's brought herself so authentically to the last 2 episodes. So whilst you are all hopefully feeling rather energized, I thought I'd finish off with a fun and ridiculous quote. Many of you may think of it automatically when you think of Chianti, and this is possibly the most famous quote from Silence of the Lambs. You know what's coming. So, in the film, Hannibal Lecter says to Clarice, "A censer taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti." And on that note, may you drink what you love this week. Do something you love this week. Share this podcast with someone you love this week. And of course, if you find a few moments, don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify. Now, next week, I'm going to carry on with my deep dive series, and this one is on sparkling wines. So get ready to exercise those brain muscles. And until next week, cheers to you.